I was in sin's prison, oh so dark and cold, like a lost sheep wandering from God's eternal fold. Then the gates swung open, Jesus said to me, I have signed thy pardon, now you may go free. Jesus signed my pardon, this I surely know, paid my debt on Calvary now.
And we'll go get through Exodus 13. Son, you're going to have to settle down because we're getting ready to get serious here.
Amen.
Yeah, right. Okay, go to Exodus 13. We reviewed chapters 1 through 11 on our first time and just kind of went through those a little bit. Then we went through 12. We had some questions on chapter 12 in regards to the Sabbath. Was Jesus crucified on Wednesday or on Friday? We'll cover that a little bit later on. It's going to be a little side study for us. It's a good study. I think we'll like that a lot.
6 o'clock afternoon or something?
Well, we're going to cover it. We're going to cover it a little bit later on. And I think you'll appreciate it and like it. So it'll be good. But we're going to go to chapter 13 right now. Okay, and on some of your papers, some of them look like thicker packets than others because I think I duplicated some pages in there, but that's all right. That's okay. So in chapter 13, this is the first time in scriptures that the word sanctify appears. And when something appears for the first time in the Bible, it fixes its meaning for the rest of time. And so this is one of those words, we're told what sanctify means. It's always going to mean this now. It's not going to change to a different meaning. Anytime we see sanctify, this is what it's going to mean. And it's in verse 12 that tells us what it means. And what does verse 12 say, Brother Matt?
Verse 12 or 2?
Verse 12 is going to tell us what sanctify means.
Of chapter 13? That thou shalt set apart unto the Lord all that open
the matrix. Okay, that's good. So it says set apart. So to sanctify means to set apart. And that's what it's always going to mean. And verse 2 is where it first shows up. The Lord spake unto Moses, sanctify unto me all the firstborn, whatsoever openeth the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and of beast is mine. Now, this is, as we just said, a cross-reference to Exodus 12:12. And we have a statement here that God never allows the destroyer to do his work without compensation. There was the what happened just recently to let the children go from Exodus, from Egypt. I mean, what was the last plague, the last thing that took place?
The killing of the...
Exactly, right. And so the firstborn, the compensation in this case is the firstborn belong to the Lord, and they'll need to be redeemed. So that's basically what we're dealing with there. And so the firstborn of Israel now must take the place of the firstborn of Egypt, and the price of their salvation is a total dedication and consecration to God. In 1 Corinthians 6:19, Paul says that we're not our own, but we're bought with a price. So that's going a bit more towards what we're seeing here. And the verse also tells us that it was a firstborn in Egypt, the firstborn males, who were killed in Egypt. Now, we've already commented on the next verses. We've already looked at those previously, verses 3, 5, 6, and 7. And Moses said unto the people, remember this day in which you came out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand the Lord brought you out from this place. There shall be no leavened bread to be eaten. And you remember that being said, this day came ye out in the month of Abib. And you remember what the month of Abib was? What was the difference about Abib and Nisan?
I didn't understand what you said.
Okay. Do you remember what the month of Abib was about? What does that mean? A-B-I-B. What were we talking about there? That was the beginning of the Jewish year.
Oh, yeah.
Like the fourth month, roughly, right? Okay. In Egypt, they had been on Egyptian time, an Egyptian calendar. Now they're on the Hebrew time schedule. Okay? And let's see here. Let's go ahead and look at verse 8. Verse 8 says, "And thou shalt show thy son in that day, saying, This is done because of that which the Lord did unto me when I came forth out of Egypt." Now, one of the reasons that these things are done, and we're talking about the feast that was happening here, the unleavened bread shall be eaten for 7 days, there be no leavened bread, be seen with thee, neither shall there be leaven seen with thee in all thy quarters. In verse 7 it says that, and verse 8 says, "Why? And thou shalt show thy son in that day." What is that day? That day is when God brought them out of Egypt. Okay, so it's a way to remind the children of what God has done. It's a reminder, it's a remembrance. And verse 14 states that as well. If we run over 14, it says, "And it shall be when thy son asketh thee in time to come, saying, What is this? That thou shalt say unto him, By strength of hand the Lord brought us out from Egypt, from the house of bondage." So these are days of remembrance. Remember what God has done, never to forget it. If you don't have a day of remembrance, what happens?
You forget it.
Very good. What did we just have just recently, September the 11th? What were we remembering?
Barack Obama.
Well, not exactly. Not exactly. September the 11th, we're remembering the...
Attacking
That's right.
the United States of America.
That's-
It's Chile.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It was the coup in Chile that we were... Oh, my. But it's a day of remembrance. We have Memorial Day. Why do we have Memorial Day? To remember our military. It's a remembrance. Labor Day. Why do we have Labor Day?
So now I have to go to work.
That's exactly right. That's all Labor Day is about. They don't go to work. That's exactly it. We have Grandparents' Day. Why do we have Grandparents' Day? It's another Hallmark anniversary, another Hallmark day, so they can sell some more cards. That's why we have Grandparents' Day. So that's about it right there. But it was a day of remembrance. So we have special days that remember. Thanksgiving is a great one to think about because we're thankful for everything God has done. We bring our family together. And so the children may ask us, why do we have Thanksgiving? Why do we have Christmas? It's great teaching opportunities. And so that's what's happening here too. God is establishing some wonderful teaching opportunities to be passed down from generation to generation to generation so that it won't be forgotten what's happened and how God led them out and what he's done here. Verse 9. Verse 9. And this is pretty interesting. "And it shall be for a sign unto thee upon thine hand, and for a memorial between thine eyes, that the Lord's law may be in thy mouth, for with a strong hand," there's that word strong hand again. Remember that word showing up a lot of times before about how God's going to bring them out with a strong hand. "Strong hand hath the Lord brought thee out of Egypt." Now, in this case, the instructions here have nothing to do with what the Hebrews wear when they're praying. It's called a phylactery. If you turn the page, there's a picture of the phylacteries that were worn during prayer. And they had a box that went between their head, between their eyes.
There it is.
That's the different pieces of the phylactery. Mm-hmm. Oh, you don't have it? You didn't get the
Anybody
new...
have a picture?
I do.
You didn't get one of the new pages? It's not, probably, is it in your book? You already put yours in your book?
I don't have a picture.
You don't? Oh. Well, you will have in just a moment. I'll move this one. Oh, this one doesn't either. Well,
How about the thick ones?
yeah, those will probably have it. Let me trade you off real quick. Well, where'd you think it was? Goodness. I didn't put these together too well, did I? Oh, that's because this is the pastor stuff right there. It's not going to be in there. So this looks like it might be, I didn't hear that, that's fine. This looks like it might have to do with the phylacteries, but it's not about what they wear. In this case, the verse is about what they will see, what they will do, what they will speak. And so that's what it is. It's a sign unto thee upon thine hand, what I do, and it's a memorial between thine eyes, what I see, that the Lord's law may be in thy mouth, so that it's what I speak. So it's not dress and wear. And what is that sign that we're speaking about here? What were we just talking about? The memorial. What did the memorial involve? What kind of bread?
Unleavened.
Unleavened bread. That's right. So the sign that's being spoken about here, the sign is the unleavened bread, which means it was pure. Okay? Didn't have any impurities in it at all. So it's not about dress. It's not about wear. It's about a sign of the unleavened bread, and letting them know, well, we should be like that too, you know? We should really take God's word and let that be what we really do. Let it be what we really think and what we really speak. We let so many other things get in the way of it that it becomes leavened, and we don't keep it in the sense that it should be. Okay, so that's what verse 9 has to do with. And then you can look at the picture of, now you can anyway, of the phylacteries that were worn during prayer. They're still done now. Now, phylacteries are not worn on Sabbath. They're not worn on the day of rest that they have. They're not worn on those Sabbath days, but they're worn at the times of prayer. And in this case, it's to remind them of what to pray and what to do. And just some interesting information for you, telling you what's in the phylactery and the verses that are there that let you know how it was used. Now, verses 11 through 16. Verses 11 through 16. Let's go ahead and read these verses. I'll be real quick tonight. Would it hurt anybody's feelings if we were quick tonight? And it shall be when the Lord shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, as he sware unto thee and to thy fathers, and shall give it to thee. Who were the fathers that were told that they'd be going to the land of Canaan? Is Abraham. Abrahamic covenant that was made. That thou shalt set apart, there's that sanctify, unto the Lord all that openeth the matrix. We got to stop there for just a minute. And every firstling that cometh of the beast which thou hast, the male shall be the Lord's. And I'm going to ask the pastor to help us on this one. Matrix. What is a matrix?
Verse 2.
Who?
Verse 2 is a matrix. Okay. Sanctify me all the firstborn. What's right? But what I'm getting at is, and I'm just kind of thinking out loud a little bit, just kind of thought, what letter does matrix end with?
X.
X. Did we do something with X's not too long ago on Wednesday night?
Yes.
Okay.
Six.
You know it's being recorded.
Well, that's what we do, but everything that ended in X.
That's true. We didn't talk about that. And what is the indication of the letter X?
The devil.
Okay. So I was wondering, matrix is an opening. So matrix is a word that's being used here. Is it an accident
No.
that matrix is used here then? So why would matrix be used? Why would it? I'm just wondering.
I think it has to do with.
No, I think it has to do with we're coming to this. I could be totally off base. I just kind of wonder, maybe it has to do with the fact that we come into this world as a sinner. You know, we're not gods yet, and that's it. Am I wrong on that, or does that make any sense at all, or is it way out there?
Sounds like you've been talking to my brother.
No, sir, I haven't. Is that what he thinks?
No, he just.
Well, I was proud of me for having the thought, but we'll just go ahead and we won't worry about matrix. Instead, we will just mix that, okay, to move on. There you go.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, it's not like I can chase rabbits. They've all been chased. So, we'll go back to, I thought maybe I'd found something. I guess not. It just seemed interesting.
Nah, that was good though.
So, let's look at, we're going through 11 through 16. Verse 13, and every firstling of an ass thou shalt redeem with a lamb, and if thou wilt not redeem it, then thou shalt break his neck, and all the firstborn of man among thy children shalt thou redeem, and it shall be when thy son asketh thee. Then we go back to that 14 again, verse 14, where we had talked about over here in verse 9, that the children can ask, why are we doing this? So this time, it's when a sacrifice is made, then the children can ask, why are you doing that? And he can talk about redemption at that point. That thou shalt say unto him, by strength of the hand the Lord brought us out from Egypt, from the house of bondage. Our God redeemed them. And it came to pass when Pharaoh would hardly let us go. There's an interesting phrase too. Hardly let us go. Why did he let him go? Or did he just, I mean, what does it mean? Hardly let us go.
You don't want them to go.
Not really. I mean, that's good. That's good. It's kind of a trick question though. Hardly isn't that unusual of a word. You know, it's like the house was being unpacked, and I could hardly get out of there. Well, you got out, didn't you? The house is on fire. The house is on fire, and I hardly got out. Well, you got out. I hardly got through that test that the pastor gave me. I just hardly got through it, but you got through it. So I think it's just more like an adverb, just saying how. I just hardly got it. I just, you know, it's tough to do. So hardly let them go isn't any kind of a mistake either. It should be there that way. And then moving on from there. Verse 15, and it came to pass when Pharaoh would hardly let us go, that the Lord slew all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. And then it says, therefore I sacrifice to the Lord all that openeth the matrix. There we are again, the compensation. Being males, but all of the firstborn of my children I redeem, and it shall be for a token upon mine hand, and for frontlets between thine eyes, for by strength of the hand the Lord brought us forth from Egypt. So all this has to do, all the things we're reading right now have to do with giving us a way to remember and to not forget. You know, another example is most people, a lot of people have almost forgotten all about the Holocaust. A lot of people don't know what the Civil War was. They've forgotten because it just hasn't been told and hasn't been reminded enough. And in this case, let's see, I won't go back to verse 13 for a minute because I had to struggle with this verse a little bit to kind of figure it out, and I finally went to one of the best sources, which is my pastor. And every firstling of an ass thou shalt redeem with a lamb, and if thou wilt not redeem it, then thou shalt break his neck, and all the firstborn of man among thy children shalt thou redeem. That sounds like kind of an odd thing, doesn't it? You know, why would I want to redeem the ass? Why would I not want to? And why would I break its neck? Why would I kill it that way? But really, it wasn't as complex as I thought at all. The fact is, to redeem that animal, which is an unclean animal, and by the way, the ass here, particularly the foal of the ass, which was the coat that Jesus would ride in on into the city that day when the palm leaves were laid out in front of him, is a great picture of unsaved man. That's what the picture is here, is of an unsaved man. And so in this case, if you wanted to redeem that, you had to sacrifice a lamb, but you have to redeem your children. There's not any, there's not any condition for sacrifice of a life that way. So if you only have one lamb, you got to sacrifice your child, so you got to break the neck of the ass instead and kill it. So that's really all it had to do with. I thought it was going to be something kind of different from that, but it was not as unclear. And I think that just goes to tell me again, the King James Bible is not unclear. Sometimes I just make it that way. Okay, now we're going to go to verse 17, which is a good one too. And it came to pass. Now those first 4 words I love to read. And I thought about those 4 words, and it came to pass, because it seemed like Pharaoh would never let them go. Sir?
That's 5 words.
And it came to. And it came to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it said itu. And never mind.
We love you, Professor.
Now it's counting it.
And it came to pass. I like those 5 words that are there. Because it seemed like Pharaoh would never let them go. How many plagues did it take for Pharaoh to finally let them go? How many were there?
10 or 12.
10. 10 plagues, right? So it took 10 plagues, not 7 that I said it was one time last year, but 10. And so it took all of those for him to finally let him go, and it came to pass. And I think about the adversities that we go through a lot of times, and we think, man, I'm never going to get through this. Yeah, you are. And you're going to tell about it later. And it came to pass. It'll pass. It'll pass. You know, when something bad happens, you'll sometimes hear them say the phrase, well, this too shall pass. And it's true. It will. It really will. God's got it all in control. It just may not seem like it right at the moment. And you might be totally burdened down with it right now, but you will get through it, always. God's not going to desert you. And he didn't desert them either, even though it took all the plagues. And it came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God led them not through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near, for God said, lest peradventure the people repent when they see war, and they return to Egypt. So, was he saying in this verse, well, you know, if they see the Philistines, it's going to scare them and they're going to go back to Egypt because they don't want to see war. Do you really think they would be afraid of war? They've been nothing but battle hardened all these 415 years, and they had all of the mechanisms of war with them, so that everything with them for warfare to take place. So I don't think it's that. And we can spiritualize it, of course. Now, Brother Matt, what are the 3 ways that we look at verses? That's right. That's right. So we can do that, and I guess it'll make some good preaching or something like that, so that God is gracious and doesn't put us through something until we're ready. But He does a lot of times because He makes us ready as we go. So if we look at that verse, we can find really that the point is they had an appointment with God that had to be made, and that was going to be on Mount Sinai. Well, they couldn't go to Mount Sinai if they went to the land of the Philistines right now. You know, and they had to be prepared to meet God. There's a lot that had to take place, and so even though they could have just gone over, they're going to beat the Philistines soon enough. But they weren't afraid of war, because the fact is they had just as many wars on the east side of the Jordan as they would have had on the west. Numbers 21 through 23 will tell you that. And when they started into the promised land, they were right next to the Philistines, so that wasn't the problem. But verse 18 tells us, but God led the people about through the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea, and the children of Israel went up harnessed out of the land of Egypt. Harnessed means that they had all the weapons that they needed to fight war. So that wasn't the reason. The reason was because where God needed to take them. That's all it was. He had a different path for them. And a lot of times we think we got a better path to go. We think we got something better figured out. But the fact is, God's got a plan for us, and we just don't always understand it or see it. But He does have a plan for us. Now, moving on from there, what time is it? You know?
9, 20.
Okay, we'll be through here in just a few minutes. Looking at the last couple of verses. I'm sorry, I got to back up from there to 18. We just read that. And verse 19. Verse 19. Who'd like to read that verse for us, Brother Matt?
And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had straightly sworn the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones away hence with you.
Great.
I got a reference for that. It says Genesis 50:25.
Do you? What does Genesis 50:25 say?
Joseph making swear that
We were going to read the pastor. We're going to read the passage, Pastor. But that is what it says. That's right. Genesis 50:25.
And Joseph took an oath of the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from hence.
Great. Now, in the closing chapter, we see again, and we can't help but notice that Joseph is a type of Christ. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes, he is. Definitely. In so many ways. He shows in so many ways that he's a type of Christ. And we know that none of Christ's bones are on this earth. And Egypt is a type of the world. And so Joseph's bones could not be left there. They had to be taken because he's a type of Christ. And we know that Christ's bones were raptured. And so Joseph's bones couldn't remain at the royal cemetery at Tanis. So the New Testament Christian is in Christ and is part of his flesh and bones, according to Ephesians 5:30. And in such a position, the Christian bones cannot stay on earth either. So our bones are not going to remain either buried or alive, because our bones are also going to be raptured. So all of that works together to show us what's coming, that the rapture is coming. So in that sense, at that point, Joseph was also raptured from Egypt, and he was taken with the Hebrew children on their journey. The last two verses, and they took their journey from Succoth and camped in Ethan in the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light to go by day and night. He took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of the fire by night from the people, from before the people. So God was definitely with them, no question about it. So in here we've seen several things. We've seen that they had the different memorials so that they could pass on, not just worship God, but so that they could also pass on what had happened. We see that that there's a requirement that we're not our own, and that we must be redeemed. And so that's something we saw in this chapter as well. So redemption is here also. We've seen also that God has a plan for us in the way that we should go, and sometimes we may think a different way is better for us, but God's plan is always the best, because he had something far greater, that meeting at Mount Sinai, and then take them all across into the promised land, into Canaan, where they'll take care of the Philistines in short order anyway. And we've also seen that a rapture of Joseph, in a sense, took place, and that his bones were not left in that cemetery, in that royal cemetery in Tanis, but were taken with the Hebrew children on their journey, just as Christ's bones were raptured, just as ours will be raptured as well. So all of that took place also. So these are several things that we saw in here, and we also saw those 5 words I like so much, and it came to pass. The 5 words, not 4, but 5 words. So there's quite a bit in there that's really encouraging in chapter 13. A lot that we can really apply to our own daily lives, and we can find a lot of I think a lot of direction into how we should be as well. Okay.
If you figure out what matrix means,
Did you look it up?
one,
Right. An opening, a womb. That's right. But I'm just saying, why does it end with an X? Why didn't they say womb instead of matrix? Why do they use that term?
Wanted to expand our vocabulary.
I still think it's because it ends with an X.
Well, that's why,
said verse 2.
yeah, verse 2 explains
Mhm.
it. You know, it says almost the exact same words, but it says womb where matrix is. And that's why,
I know, but
that's why the Bible has the own dictionary.
I understand. I'm just, there's a word that ends in X. That's all. That's all I was saying. I'd like to say I'm probably way off base on that, but it made for an interesting thought to
You
myself
have to
anyway.
remember, in tribulation, there's a great matrix in the ground,
Yes, there is.
and out of the bottomless pit comes. So yeah, matrix has something to do with the Antichrist.
So I just thought maybe it had something to do with that because it's talked so much about redemption in here, in this chapter. Okay. All right, we'll get through 14, maybe 14 and 15 next week when we come together, and just take the notes. And I didn't talk to you about the Red Sea, about some of the things that it's kind of interesting about where people want to make them cross in the Red Sea, which is more like around the Suez Canal, which didn't happen. Because if that happened, they would have crossed in 3 feet of water, and the whole Egyptian army would have drowned in 3 feet of water. So they were very short people if that took place, because the Bible talks that they were standing upright when they drowned, and the bodies came up on the shore. You know, the dead bodies were on the shore of the Red Sea. So those had to be some mighty tiny people if that's where they crossed. But that's not what happened. We know that. But that information is in there anyway, just kind of some reading if you'd like. Okay? Anything else that we need to add to that?
I was in sin's prison, oh so dark and cold, like a lost sheep wandering from God's eternal fold. Then the gates swung open, Jesus said to me, I have signed my part, and now you may go free. Jesus signed my part, and it's a surely no.